that Usyk was giving him. Were at the first time he did. Yeah. I seen him land a few of the jabs, and although he was moving a little bit funny, like he was in shock, he took the jab. He was just trying to get it away of it because he thought something else was coming. So he wasn't shook with the jab. It was just where he was moving. He done his 12 rounds a lot better, but you know, I listened. I don't know what round it was. I think 3 or 4 rounds had passed, and the corner said to him, "You know, you're 3 or 4 rounds up here." You know,
He wasn't.
not what I was looking at. He was 3 or 4 rounds down.
Oh,
The
brutal.
fight went exactly the same pattern as it did the first time.
It did. Big facts.
It was the same. It was the same thing. A little bit more intention, but
Tiny
similar
bit.
same. He tried to let go in the 9th, and he had his best round ever. You know, but he just listen. We got to give Usyk the credit. He's a sublime technician. Yeah, and when you're fighting these elite level fighters, you know, this is where your weaknesses get badly exposed, because it's not really what Joshua's doing. It's how good Usyk is.
I disagree with
You
that.
need to understand that as well. You know, so it's all right saying he should have, could have, would have. Usyk, you know, he knew what he was going to do. You know, and I've heard people say hit him to the body. No. People say, oh, you know, it was borderline, that shot he took to the body. No, it wasn't. Played it on replay, right in the groin. You know, and the referee was wanting to give him time, and he said, oh, I'll continue. You know, he ticks, like I've always said about Usyk, he ticks all the boxes. He's a serious fighter. But the game plan for me was wrong. The game plan. And the thing is as well, he was almost boxing Joshua like he was locked in. And what I mean by locked in, when you got your arms like this and you're bending over the front foot and you're 6'6", yeah, then look at the way his arms was and look at Usyk, how relaxed he is, how his arms are here, shoulder level, yeah, because they're there for a reason. Because you can slip, you can slide, you can feint off. Anybody with their arms clinged into the chest, well, you can read it. And he was trying to generate power from the outside, you know, rather than box his way in. Where was his lovely double jab?
Agree.
You know, and moving his feet in behind the jab, closing the distance. Yeah, Usyk would have fired, but you catch and respond. Somebody his size.
He didn't want to commit.
Put the ring down.
Didn't want to commit.
You just catch and respond. But look, easier said than done. I do believe the game plans, I've got to be honest, the game plans was wrong. He lost most of the rounds. I didn't have the score close at all. I had it wide, you know. And I think the scores definitely need to be looked at. But the right man, the main thing is Usyk won.
Yo, what's good, family? It's your man, the YB, back once again. So we just heard there from your mans, Peter, Fury, airing out Anthony Johnston's bum having ass team. He said, listen, he don't know what Robert Garcia was doing, blowing smoke all the way up Johnston's backside. Oh, you're boxing lovely. Oh, we're up 4-0. I heard that as well, and it's weird because after that, after they finished blowing smoke up AJ's ass in the 4th, I don't remember any more corner work from AJ's team, which is odd. And even to this day, I've been sitting back waiting for Sky to leak the full corner work. I'm sure in the past they've put out a 10-minute video of both sides corner work as like a kind of montage. Where it at? We must see that, because from what I heard, there was no... I mean, I did a video the other day. We've heard how Leon Edwards' trainer did it. Yeah, Leon Edwards' trainer was arguably pivotal in the difference between being... Listen, Leon Edwards was 30 seconds or a minute away from being any other bum. Any other Usman loser bum. Now, Leon Edwards' trainer, 10 out of 10. It's not rocket. And the worst thing is, people, it's not rocket science. How hard is it, yeah, to be pessimistic and honest with your athlete? How hard is that? Why do these trainers consistently lean on the side of optimistic. Oh, let's be 10 out of 10 as optimistic as possible. We've won 4 rounds. There's no way. If I'm a trainer, I'm going to lean on, assume, if rounds are close, assume you're losing them. Because you can always, if you've got 3 rounds left, you can always do something about it then, can't you? If the fight's close, it's no good, okay, we've had 9 rounds and it's probably 5-4. It's no good telling your fighter you're 9-0 up, is it? What's good's that? Who's that helping? If your fighter thinks he's 9 rounds up, he's going to be more inclined to sit back and just coast. If I think a fight's 50-50, I'm telling my fighter, at least you're 9 rounds down. Or at least you could be 9 rounds down here. Do you know what I mean? At best, you're getting your ass mollywopped. Pull your finger out your ass. Yeah? You're 9 rounds down. That's the spectrum. You're 9 rounds down, do something about it. Or it's 50-50. You could be losing. What you don't do in a 50-50 fight, which for me it was, you don't sit there and say, oh yeah, you're winning 4 rounds. Because for me, I thought it was up until round 4, round 5, it was about 50-50. Especially when you consider, this wasn't the case, people, where, okay, YB, AJ's the unified cash cow champion, yeah? That's different then. That does, in my mind, that does have a weighting. When you go into a fight and you're a long reigning champion, in that case, it makes more sense to be more optimistic. You can you have certain things go for you, don't they? When you're the cash cow and you're the undisputed champion and whatever else, if rounds are close, you're probably going to get them. But when you're the challenger, forget about it. And I think that's how it should be, really. I think as a challenger, you should have to do more than the bare bones minimum. Because really, a champion, anyone can have one good fight. A champion has to be good every night. So that's why I build that into my thinking, that champions really should be given a bit of the benefit of the doubt. Anyone can have one half decent fight and then lose the next one, Buster Douglas style. As a champion, I believe they should be given the benefit of the doubt in close fights. That said, when you're the challenger, as AJ was, and not only was he the challenger, he was the dude 10 kilos heavier. That's really understated. And like I said before, AJ's really the first man in the history of boxing to complain about a gross weight advantage. Throughout the history of the sport, people are begging to listen. If a fighter can gain a 5-pound advantage, they're taking it. AJ had a 20-pound advantage, and for the first time in history, he's trying to spin that like it's a negative. I've never heard of that before. If being bigger is a detriment because your cardio runs out, why haven't we heard of this before? Why haven't 130-pounders with loads of cardio been going up to 170 and beating people because they've got more cardio? Oops. The history of the sport shows weight means more than cardio. That's why you don't have 175-pounders who have a lot more cardio than heavyweights dominating, innit? Let's be real now. Where are they all? Where's all the examples of 175-pound men whooping heavyweights? In fact, where's the examples of even cruiserweights whooping heavyweights? We don't observe it. Oops. No excuse. That's what that tells you. That tells you that it's no excuse to run out of gas. It tells you that you're doing something wrong in training. And Peter Fury had it all the way down pat here. He said, listen, boom. AJ's plan was an incremental increase. It was. The first fight AJ, it was 2 out of 10 intent. This rematch, he was 3 or 4 out of 10. 3 out of 4 out of 10, don't cut it. Let's not also forget, Eddie Hearn and all of AJ's team were slagging off the public. Oh, people think it's easy. Oh, everyone knows the strategy to beat Usyk, but it's not as easy as that. Well, wait a minute. Eddie Hearn was mugging the fans off for being stupid and claiming that it's not as simple as that. But we all knew the strategy. Yet, you claimed to know the strategy and claimed it was, oh yeah, it's obvious it's too obvious what needs to be done. And yet, the obvious thing that everyone knows you needed to do, again, you did the opposite. AJ, for the most part, if there was one strategy you had to define AJ's strategy as, it would be to try and outbox Usyk. I'm sorry. Up until round 9, it was a boxing match. Very clinical. Yes, there was a few more uppercuts to the body, sprinkled in there, but it wasn't a go-to. For example, in contrast, watch how Derek Chisora fought Pulev. My takeaway from that fight was Derek Chisora, probably the top 2 things he achieved in that fight was working Pulev's body. It was a go-to for Chisora. It was not a go-to for AJ to whack the body. AJ's go-to was standing up straight and trying to slip, slide and box. The jab was not thunderous. Another thing Peter Fury picks up on, as did I. Why wasn't AJ, walking the jab forward? That's a well-known thing about boxing. Triple G, for example, a well-known pressure fighter. You pop the jab out, back them to the ropes, corner them off, and then let shots fly. Half of the reason AJ can't hit Usyk is he tries to engage with Usyk in the centre of the ring. In the centre of the ring, people like Usyk have too many options. They can move their feet, they can move their head, they can do what they want with you. That's the whole reason you cut the ring off, because then your opponent ain't got nowhere to go. It's hard enough when you're backed into the corner ropes, yeah? It's hard enough to move your head. You're literally squared in. You can't even really bend at the waist anymore. You're blocked in. But to do that requires pressure. It requires risk taking. When you see Canelo cut the ring off, yeah, it requires walking through your opponent's shot. You have to do that. You have to assume you'll be getting hit. That's a given. To be a pressure fighter is to get hit. Your job is to obviously minimise where you're getting hit. For the most part, yes, Canelo will get hit clean. Yes, Chisora will get hit clean. But for the most part, you do that with the tightest defence you can have. And you walk forward. And you cut the ring off. And you bang away. Instead, AJ was sitting at mid-range, trying to box and slip and slide with Usyk, and then trying to throw power shots in the centre of the ring. I'm trying to think now, how many times did we see Usyk back to the ropes the whole night? Very few. In contrast, Chisora, despite having much more slower feet, despite being much older than AJ, he had much more offensive success. Bottom line, and I remember in that fight, people were saying, "Ooh, Usyk looks old overnight." And it was actually the AJ fight which revived Usyk. Oh wow, he's back. I believe, given what happened in the rematch, yeah, Usyk looked similar to how he looked in the Chisora fight in the rematch. He looked almost at points out of ideas. Whenever AJ put the pressure on, Usyk looked out of ideas. Yes, he showed great heart to come fighting back. I have to salute that. But I'm saying, I'm sorry, but for me, Usyk did not win the fight. As in, he didn't actively win it. AJ lost the fight. Usyk didn't win it for me. Same, to be honest, with the Chisora fight. Usyk was a passenger in that Chisora fight. He was just getting through it. In comparison, I'll explain what I mean by that. Yeah, Tyson Fury versus Chisora 2. Fury versus Chisora 2. That's an example of someone outboxing Chisora and dominating him doing so. Yeah, that's an example of Fury. Like, Chisora didn't lose that fight against Fury. Fury won it. Do you understand? There was never a second Chisora was in that fight against Fury. Fury boxed his ears off. Now, in comparison, look how Usyk beat Chisora. Completely different. Usyk was a passenger. Usyk was getting lucky as such. He wasn't dominating the fight in a boxing match. He was lucky that at points Chisora ran out of cardio. At points Chisora backed off the pressure. The whole way through the fight, there was very little, compared to how Fury showed it. There was very little dominance, even though Fury was on the back foot for the whole Chisora 2 fight. Still, it was dominant back foot. I never got the feeling Usyk was dominant against Chisora. And I'm sorry, up until round 8, the same can be said for AJ versus Usyk too. I never got the feeling Usyk was really properly outboxing him. It was always a case of, why isn't AJ letting his hands go? Now, some people will say, oh well, YB, that was Usyk shutting him down. It wasn't, though. It just wasn't. The fact of the matter is, yeah, you can credit Usyk with this if you want, but the fact of the matter is, AJ just doesn't like taking risk. For AJ to win that fight against Usyk, he needed to be prepared to go forward and pressure. He hasn't got it in him anymore, bottom line. When you're worth 200, 300 mil, you don't have that oomph inside you to commit to that kind of work. And to be quite frank, we're even seeing it with Canelo. Canelo now, in there with Bivol, he needed to get gritty and go toe to toe. He didn't really want to go there, did he? He didn't want to go there. He was happy to be tired and just sit back. He didn't want to go to that dark place. And to be honest, he still would have lost, but surely he would have lost better in doing that. But unfortunately, it's a sign of the times. These big, buff, overpaid dudes don't want to do more than a standard performance. We have not, AJ versus Usyk 1 and 2, we have not seen any real all-time great or Hall of Fame characteristics from AJ. We saw some borderline, I'd say, for example, what Usyk did in round 10, that for me is a borderline Hall of Fame characteristic. To have a bigger man tee off on you, have your worst round, and to come back against a man 10 kilos heavier than you and push his wig back, that there is Hall of Fame characteristic. When was the last time we've seen Hall of Fame characteristic against AJ? Or from AJ rather, when was it? 2017? Really? I'd say 2017 against Vlad. That was the last time we saw AJ really have to do something half outside of himself. And to be honest, even then, AJ had all the advantages. AJ was the man who was better on the inside. AJ was the stronger man. AJ was the younger man. So really, what's Hall of Fame about that? Okay, you got off the canvas, but I'm sorry, but getting off the canvas isn't automatically Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame, in my mind, is when you're doing things that are against the odds. AJ wasn't against the odds, was he? In there with an old lad who really never fought on the inside. It was all supposed to be AJ anyway. So listen, some people have said, oh, YB, AJ needs to go with Peter Fury. Listen, I want to see, personally, I need to see how Peter Fury deals with Savannah Marshall versus Clarissa Shields. That'll tell me a lot, because for me, Peter Fury fighters tend to be a bit one-dimensional. They all seem to be doing that 2015 Tyson Fury special. Yes, Savannah Marshall has demonstrated some good power, but that's what I'm saying. I want to see how Peter Fury dissects Clarissa Shields, to be honest with you. Either way though, I don't really think Peter Fury is the best fit for AJ. I think he needs someone who understands more, or who is more of a speciality. I wouldn't even mind, for example, AJ working with Abel Sanchez. I can't lie to you. I wouldn't even mind starting there, for what it's worth. And really, what's Abel Sanchez done outside of Triple G? Nothing. So yeah, I'm just throwing some names out there. Better than what's his name? No. Better than Robert Garcia? No good. 100%.